Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to a new year. And of course, 2023 was a very good one and a very nice one to look back on as well. So before we get into the New Year's content and into everything that we're going to do in this year, I think it's good to reflect on everything that happened last year. And for those of you that keep up with me on social media, you'll know that we actually ran a special giveaway with Bushiroad, giving away all of these fantastic prizes for their games that released throughout the year. And you had a chance to win a bunch of these, which of course was held for the period of Christmas. And today we're also going to be selecting a winner for that at the end of this video, so make sure you stay tuned to the very end. Now usually I do these in terms of like the cards I rely on videos. I think I didn't actually do one last year, but normally we kind of go over the cards that I felt I relied on the most throughout the year. But this year I want to do things a little bit differently and kind of look back on the whole year as a whole, because for me, just looking back at it on like New Year's Eve, it felt like there was actually quite a lot that was very, very impactful throughout the year. So beginning from January itself, this was back in, I guess in Japan, we still had DBT08 format because that had just released in December. But January was also the lead up into Worlds for the English side. So of course, this was the Youthberg and Orphist was some of the biggest highlights. But I think for me, it was like that experience of being at Worlds, of course, in LA for the very first time ever, but also having the fact that we had the big EVA support. So for me, EVA's, Blue Research Lab was one of the big highlights of the early start of the year, I think, because that deck was my main tournament deck for a very long time, and being able to play with my friends, like Derek and Maxime and Kai, who, were kind of preparing for the future formats when I kind of had a lot of the upcoming releasing cards back in the day, felt like a very, like memorable experience. So I think just that one card already for the BT08 format was a very big impactful memory back then. And of course, Worlds wrapped up. February, I came back, and I have this very fond memory of another product that released throughout the year, which was DBT09. Now, DBT09 isn't particularly one of my favorite sets or anything of the year, but on the day that I came back from Japan, I think that was the release day of Set 9 in Japan. And of course, we're talking about Bushiroad products released in 2023, but the release schedule is a bit different between Japanese and English. But as someone that lives in Japan, for me, the Japanese side is the one that applies a bit more. And so actually on the day that Set 9 came out, I met up with Matt from Bushiroad itself, and we went down to one of the shops that still had a few boxes of Set 9 left and just immediately copped some. And just that memory of like picking those up and then immediately going to a VGCS the day after to play with this, kind of like mishmash for EVA. I was still playtesting the Dragon Tree Grade 1 in EVA and managed to top it, got second, which was a very good start to the year. So in terms of tournament performance, I've done like members exclusive videos talking about my tournament experience throughout the year already, and that was already a very good start to it, already securing a top at the very beginning of the year. March wasn't so much a very impactful card game month as much as it was a impactful kind of like life month, because I was moving to the apartment that I currently live in, and so I was kind of wrapping things up at the dorm I had lived in at the time. We did see the release of Messiah at the time, which I was messing around with quite a bit, like seeing a lot of people get super excited for it coming up in the future too. A lot of people got back into the game with Messiah as well. Looking at the entries into the giveaway, a lot of you shared your favorite things about the Bushiroad products released this year, and a lot of people said that the release of the Stride deck sets was one of their biggest highlights, and a lot of the returning players from the G era were returning thanks to those Stride deck sets. And of course, with Lord and Shivna coming out later down the year, is also going to be a very exciting time for those people too. Now April, there was a lot of stuff happening, right? We had one of my personal favorite sets of the year, which is Dragon Masquerade. So of course, this was a set that introduced the Masks decks, and one of my personal favorites that I actually have right here on me, if I can just find the card itself here. So we're going to use this for the giveaway later, but of course, Leonard Masks, one of my favorite mask decks of all, releasing this set, and of course, Gendiva also releasing this set. But if I had to, again, kind of like borrow that like cards I relied on throughout the year format, the Habitable Zone, it was one of the big cards that I felt like was a huge inclusion into EVA, that I, tried it out with a bunch of different cards, and then finding Doc, and then kind of like using that strategy throughout the tournament season for the next couple of months felt so like such an interesting innovation on a deck that already felt quite solved, right? So EVA definitely got lots of support throughout that early start of the year. She definitely kind of fell off in the second half. So being able to enjoy my favorite deck, getting like extra support bit by bit throughout the year felt really, really good. April also, we had a lot of other really interesting events. So of course we had Daivangasai happening at the end of the month. So a lot of people came throughout the world to just participate in the big Vanguard festival, and being able to play in the tri-regulation tournaments, which this year you're gonna have in Springfest as well. It was very, very fun, and overall just a very good experience. And related to another Bushiroad title, of course, the Guilty Gear Strive's release in Vice Schwartz. In end of March / start of April, we also had EVO Japan, which was my very first time ever participating in an EVO event. And of course, didn't do great or anything, but of course, you know, being able to see like a large scale fighting game event, of course, not trading card games, but again, we now have that kind of like cross-pollination between fighting game and trading card game communities now, thanks to Strive being in Vice. And so that's another kind of like interesting connection point, I feel like, between the trading card game and fighting game communities. And another thing that happened in April that I feel was very, very memorable for me was the release of Set 5 for Evolve in Japan. So of course, Shadowverse Evolve we're going to touch on more a bit later in this video, but I was already playing the Japanese edition from launch, and for me, Set 5 is where the game basically becomes peak and just keeps on going. Like, it does not stop being peak from Set 5 onwards, in my opinion. Not to say that previous to Set 5 it's not peak, but I think that the card designers just basically kind of like unchained themselves. It feels like the first few sets where they're like, okay, we got to make sure everyone that's like coming into Shadowverse Evolve with zero Shadowverse experience manages to kind of like get into the game nice and easy, and it's not too overwhelming. And then it feels like Set 5 was the 1-year anniversary for the Japanese edition, and there it feels like they really went, okay, we now have our seasoned players, let's start to get a bit more creative with our card design and everything, and that's where things just got so good. And ever since then, every set has been a banger, but Set 5 in particular is probably my favorite set of all so far, because it also introduced Galmi, which is one of my favorite cards in the entire game. More on that later. So May, as I said before, Daivangasai was part of this as well. Festival Booster came out and a lot of people were going crazy for the new Overtriggers and Regulus pieces too. And then we go into June, where DBT 11 came out, and Poison in Paradise Eva, of course, was like the final iteration of Eva until we had, you know, the restriction for Combine Rusher and everything, and it just kind of like sort of fell off. But Poison in Paradise Eva was definitely another card that I'm very thankful for coming out this year in Set 11. I know a lot of people also in the submissions, you know, wrote about their like key tournament moments and, you know, other like really cool cards that came out throughout the year that they felt particularly happy to have. And of course, some of these big sets like Set 10, of course, really boosting the morale of their local communities or helping for the local scene to grow. So I think that that's, you know, something very much worth celebrating from throughout the year. Then of course, June into July was the English release for Shadowverse Evolve, and this one was a very big part for not just me as a content creator, but just for me as a person in general, because when it comes to like content creation and all the things I do, everything starts from just the fact that I'm a player and just a consumer basically of these products, right? I'm basically the same as anyone else, where I just really like these games and I like them so much that I talk to a camera about how much I like them, right? And so with Shadowverse Evolve coming out in English, I was already very happy that it's coming out in English because the game is genuinely peak, and so more people getting to play it is awesome. But the fact that I managed to also become one of the ambassadors was a very big deal for me, because this is a game that I really, really like, and it's a game that I really, you know, just recommend from the bottom of my heart to a lot of people to at least try out and get to, you know, kind of like familiarize themselves with the rules of the game. But being able to now do this as a like official position felt really, really humbling, because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm just a fan of Shadowverse. Like, I do commentary for the official esports circuit of Shadowverse as well, but at the end of the day, I'm just a fan of this game and I just really like this game. So I'm like, just like any other player, I just really like the game. So whenever people come up to me, I feel like I don't really like, I can't talk to them in a sense of like, oh, you know, I'm some important person ambassador guy, you know, when it comes to Shadowverse, but I'm kind of the same, I'm just another player. So being able to like officially gush about the game is a very, very honorable position. And so it's still very much just the beginning of my ambassador position. I've been able to put out some of the cool stuff that I've been working on for a while, such as the GP Chiba video, of course, the 2000 player tournament. I hope a lot of you watched that and really react to it. Was also very, very nice. I'm quite happy that a lot of people did, and there's a lot more cooking, so stay tuned to that. But being able to, of course, help promote Evolve and, you know, do stuff together with Igni as well as with the Bushord guys as well has been a huge honor. So I cannot wait to, like, all the other things that we have in the works and things that are planned. Stay tuned. Now moving on to August, here is where I was kind of grinding both of the Bushord card games like in parallel. So I managed to get third at WGP Gunma with Gandiva. This wasn't exactly a very good result for myself because my personal record wasn't that great. But as a team, we did pretty good. We got third. I wasn't particularly enjoying Gandiva, so I wouldn't necessarily say that it's one of my, like, you know, the decks I relied on. But I guess, you know, it did help carry me into that spot, so I guess we'll let Gandiva have a position among the cards I relied on this year. But of course, the support I got in Set 11 was really, really good before the Sturgna restriction hit. But I was also grinding shop qualifiers for Evolve with Galmu, who is definitely I would say potentially the card I relied on the most this year, because that is the evolved deck I keep defaulting back to. I really like Disdain Dragon. I'm officially a sword main, but there's something about Disdain Dragon that I just really love playing more than any other deck in Evolve right now. And so I managed to grind shop qualifiers and get my qualification for the area qualifiers that were held in December, which unfortunately got really like poorly scrubbed out in. But it was really nice where August was kind of this like relaxing month of, you know, being able to grind tournaments and also participate in one of my dream events of all time, which of course is the World Championships for one of the biggest card games in the world that I've always wanted to participate in. Maybe I'll make a separate video about that too, but August overall is just a month full of memories for me. It was full of card games, and, you know, even went back home and still had time to enjoy holidays with my family. So it really feels like there was a lot in August that I got to do, and really like every single day I feel like I could look through the calendar in August and like pinpoint what I did every single day and how memorable it was. So overall, a fantastic month in particular. September was a huge one for Bushiroad Games in Japan though, because we saw the release of set 13 for Vanguard, which of course is a very impactful set. You guys finally got it in English now too, which I think for a lot of people in those responses was like, you know, pulling Secret Youthborg, pulling Secret Leonorn was like the highlight of their year. And of course, I feel that these are all very amazing decks and very amazing cards, and I'm also like a big Leonorn fan as well. This of course is December in the Japanese side was the release of Triple Drive Booster, but we'll get to that in a second. But September was huge because of course, you know, set 13 was very exciting. A lot of people were really excited by everything that came out and playing through all of the different decks. But also for me, the Evolve Grand Prix Chiba happened at the end of September / the first day of October. And while I've participated in most of the GPs until now as a player, this was my first time participating as a ambassador, and the response I got for that was the warmest I've ever had. Like, it was, everyone was so kind and just like coming up to me, like, you know, just talking about the English version or just in general, like being able to kind of connect the two communities, the Japanese and English communities together by just being there felt like such an honor. And, you know, like seeing everybody's excitement, just receiving like English token cards was such a precious memory. And so I'm really looking forward to GPs this year as well, because that experience is just so pure. And so September and October are very memorable just for that one event. I feel like that is by far one of the most memorable events of this year as well. And moving on to October, we had a very short gap between set 13 and Lyrical 4 in Japan. I think only like 2 weeks. So that came out, and then immediately we had WGP Tokyo, where I played Maigo. So not the deck I expected myself to be playing, but my teammates just kind of said like, hey, you should be playing Maigo. So I was like, well, I mean, if you say so. And Maigo's not out in English yet, but is a very strong collab deck from Bang Dream. And I've been doing pretty well with it. So definitely, you know, I think Tomori, the main grade 3, I'm not sure if Tomori or Anon I would put as my, like, the card I relied on. I feel like Anon is the one that really helped me push games and win games easily. So maybe Anon gets that highlight spot there. But that deck, again, it's not necessarily a deck that I'm super attached to, but it's a deck that has gotten me many dubs, right? We did pretty well at Tokyo, I think. Like, we didn't make it out of qualifiers, but overall it was a good experience. But then we ran it back in Nagoya in November, and we got 3rd there, and I was using Maigo there as well and went like 7-1, so pretty good record. I was pretty happy with the deck overall. November itself was very unique because I was way too busy with work and my academic stuff in order to actually, like, I basically didn't have time to play cards whatsoever. But I had already committed to going to WGP Nagoya regardless, because GP Osaka was the next day and I was going there to make some content. And so we went to Nagoya, and I went there with basically 0 practice, and we somehow got 3rd, and I went 7-1 in Shiranui Luard meta, which felt very interesting. But again, finishing the year on a dub basically felt pretty good, especially as that was the last WGP qualifier of the year, and we were this close to qualifying for nationals too. Unfortunately, I wouldn't have been able to go to nationals because, of course, I had another academic conference happening on the same day as nationals that I could not get out of. And then finally, December, as I already mentioned, was the release of the Triple Drive Booster. And of course, this was a very exciting time because we filmed our 50K special, finally hunting down some of those SIRs that you guys watched. And thank you so much for the support there. A lot of people really gave some beautiful and kind comments about Shaka Shaka as well, which I was very happy to see. So super exciting stuff. I'm very happy about everyone just, you know, being very positive in that video's comments too. And overall, I really like Triple Drive Booster. I hope they make a lot more sets like that. I like good reprint sets with good alt arts, because I feel like that's what makes these kind of games really fun. Another memory that's kind of like not necessarily like tournament related, I've been doing a lot of tournament talk, but a lot of the entries in the, you know, the holiday giveaway talked about, you know, playing these Bushiroad card games with their siblings, or getting into it with siblings, or getting it with their best friends, or just like kind of like playing games not so much to compete, but just like the fun of playing with friends that maybe you don't have as much chance to like play with or have fun with otherwise. And another really good memory for me was, of course, teaching Vice to Nova on her stream actually. So I myself, I'm not necessarily like a Vice player, but I have played in the past. I do own a deck. You know, I had played Gurren Lagann back in the day. And so with the release of Guilty Gear Strive in English Vice, I was able to kind of like, you know, touch up on the rules again and then kind of like have fun with the game with on Nova stream as well. So make sure you check that out too. And so that's another very core memory for me of 2023. So with that wrapped up, we do have a giveaway winner to announce, and from the almost 400 entries that I had through a very, very selective process, I've managed to narrow down the almost 400 entries to a mere 30. And I was quite like selective in terms of what I was choosing. There were some very like, I feel like some were very personal and honestly very touching and emotional stories that I felt like just had to be chosen, but I almost feel like it's almost an invasion of privacy to read them out on a video. And then of course I tried to kind of like diversify things. So some people talked about, you know, some products or like some Bouchard memories that like brought them further as like cosplayers or as like artists or content creators, and then of course people that just like playing with their siblings or their friends. And so I tried to keep things as diverse as possible, so it's not just people's like tournament reports being chosen for these entries. So now I really liked what Kai did on his video, where he chose a 30 card deck, or you know, a deck full of cards, as many as there are entries, and then we have our one over trigger in here. And so this over trigger will be the winner of the giveaway. And so what we do here is we're going to give this a good little shuffle. You know, a Vanguard deck can only have one OT in it. We're going to give it a very good shuffle, and essentially we're going to draw cards until we draw the OT, and the card order that the OT is drawn in will be the entry that wins. So instead of doing a random number generator, I think this might be a little bit more fun. So it helps that I have managed to narrow it down to below 50. Otherwise I'd be shuffling a very huge stack of cards here. But let's see and find out who the winner is going to be. So we do a lot of these little shuffles. I'm trying to cut the deck as much as possible in half. So we're going to do a little quick little cuts, a little overhands, make sure we're not seeing the bottom card or anything. So we don't know where the OT is. And so now I'm going to do a quick pull down. So we're going to basically just go from the top and then see until we hit the OT. So first card, not the OT. So first entry, I'm afraid, not going to get in there. Second one, not the OT. Third, still not there. Fourth, all right, we're getting close. Fifth, still not the OT. It's a mask though, another key card from last year. Sixth card, not the OT. Seventh, front. It's a trigger now though. All right, another one of, but not the OT for the eighth card. Then we have another PG. Ninth, 10th card, still not there. All right, we're getting into the second half here. We have, all right, 11th, heal. 12th, still nothing. 13th, another one of that it didn't even release in English yet, but is out in Japan. So that was the 13th cards. Now we're getting into that halfway point. 14th, not the OT. 15th, not the OT. All right, we're officially halfway in. 16th, still not there. 17th, draw trigger. We're seeing some more triggers here. 18th, nope. 19th, PG. All right. 20th, will this be the one? Still not Vivace though, of course, a very key card from this year. Last 10 entries. I mean, if it's the last one, that's going to be ironic in its own way. Oh, and there we go. All right, 21st, I want to say, is the pick. So we're going to see who was entry number 21 here. Again, just checking, there is 9 left. So the 21st entry was Ryan Lee. So as you know, the winner, I will be reading out their entry. And Bouchard, of course, will contact you in terms of delivering all of the beautiful prizes. So Ryan Lee's one was a very touching one. So he wrote, "Over the last year, I managed to grow a lot of friendships thanks to Cardfight Vanguard. I was already very close to these people, but when Springfest came around and we had our first large group trip, it was an unforgettable time to be with everyone, hanging out and playing the game we love, even if most of us didn't do too good besides our one top 8 representative in Houston. From opening packs with them to playtesting late at night to just talking about our matches and reflecting on the times we had, it was a great, unforgettable friendship bonding moment, and I couldn't have had it without Cardfight Vanguard." So I think a very, very poetic and beautiful response to be chosen as the winner. So Ryan Lee, make sure you check your email, etc., where Bouchard will contact you But otherwise, thank you so much to all the entrants for entering into the giveaway as well. There may be more of these in the future, and I might just do more giveaways on my own side as well, as we are, you know, also having the 50k subs special giveaway as well. So look forward to maybe more stuff from my side. But again, thank you so much to everyone that participated, and also thank you to you to watching and supporting my content in 2023, because it was also a very successful year for me here on YouTube too, and we're going to be striving for some big new goals here in 2024. But with that, thank you so much for your support last year, and I look forward to seeing you this year as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.